Welcome, everybody. This is the deep dive for February of 2024. We are going to talk about what Cindy and I hear a lot from the network is that some people feel lonely, a little isolated, a little demoralized, a lot of angst, I guess, about a couple different pieces of this work. One is being the hub captain and feeling a little lonely and maybe looking for a co-captain for that leadership team for your hub. And then the other issue is I don't have anybody in my community that I'm positive will turn up and that has been trained already in how the hub works. So I'm either going to be standing by the hub by myself, or even if I'm not alone, I have to train everybody just in time, which is doable, but we would rather that not be the situation right off the ground. So whether you're struggling to find folks to stand next to you in this job, or you're just trying to find folks in your community to get engaged and come to the trainings or whatever you're hosting. So kind of two different groups of people, and let's try and keep that in mind as we're talking. You know, if you bring up an idea, is it to get general volunteers to train so that the hub operates, or are you looking for a comrade so that you don't feel the weight of this organization on your shoulders? So having said that, I want to introduce Jim Durand. He's hub captain of the Phinney Hub. He contacted Cindy and I months ago. I want to say it was like summer, maybe.
It was April of 2023.
Okay, it sounds like Jim is ready to go. He has done a really good job, and I'm anxious to hear from him what he thinks worked and maybe what didn't work. And it seems like he's fairly happy with his situation right now. So let's learn from Jim.
So I did a personal deep dive on exactly how Phinney Hub got to where it is now.
Nice.
And so the history is Jack Herndon and I inherited the Phinney Hub in 2019, and David Baum had started it, I don't know how long ago, but it has quite a bit of equipment, canopies, we've got a huge banner, various things. And so Jack and I were learning what the hub was all about. It was new to us. And we made very little progress on getting a team. With the hub came a sizable mailing list, but we really didn't know who was on the other end. We didn't send a lot out, I have to admit, but we never got much response back. So it seemed like a black hole. And so it was a hub of two. Then COVID hit, and so that really set us back. Not that we were necessarily advanced to a point, but and then Jack had to step down, and so then it became a hub of one. And I'm personally very involved in other things in the spring. Spring is very busy for me. And it seemed to me the ideas I had for trying to get people out to come to the hub, get people involved, the ideas I had were summer outdoor things. I didn't picture having a get together inside and talking about the hub in just conceptual manner would get anybody very interested, versus opening up the box and, hands-on. And the other thing is I don't like doing something half-ass. I felt like I had this task and I just really wasn't doing much in the way. And so I said to myself, well, this can't be new. I'm sure other hubs have kind of stalled, and we have all these resources. I'm sure Ann and Cindy have dealt with this before. So I talked to Ann and Cindy, and we had a couple meetings. some of the suggestions were to try to contact community organizations that might have people that are, working on preparedness and out of those discussions, we decided to have a meeting to reboot the hub. That's what we called it. I sent an invite to our mailing list, got a room at PNA, and Anne supported. I framed the meeting as we have this existing resource. We've got equipment, but it's been dormant for a number of years. And we can't let it die. We need some new blood, new energy. This was in April, so we were saying, let's figure out what we can do this summer to get this going again. But a big part of it was we need to save the hub so it doesn't dwindle away. And as I recall, I was upfront about that. I didn't have time to manage it, and I was actually looking for someone to take it on. I didn't like push that, like I'm looking for you to step up to do that, but I just framed it that way. That, and personally, I wanted to be a worker, not a leader at that point. I was very much interested in the hub, and I was doing skills fairs and stuff. I just was kind of burnout or frustrated with not having any people. So with the reboot meeting, we had about 3 people that I didn't already know. Anne and Jack came, and Jody from Ballard Commons Hub came, and 3 other people, 2 of them that I already knew, but Anne got out her laminated cards and placed them on the floor, describing, how a hub works. And it really added legitimacy. And well, this was like a structured, this existed. It wasn't just somebody saying, we need to get together and figure out what we're going to do, if an earthquake hits. And I think that was very helpful. And so from that, we chose a time to have a follow-up meeting to open the box and pull out the stuff that was in there. And when I sent out the invitation to the mailing list, I did get a few responses saying, I can't make it, but let me know, send out a summary of the meeting or whatever. I'm interested. And so I invited those people to the follow-on meeting, and some of them showed up, and people were pretty interested. I mean, they showed up a second time. And so from that, we set a meeting, the next meeting, to set up all the canopies and figure out where we might arrange things. And one thing that I was realizing today when I was thinking about this, nobody knew what a hub was. And I think that was very beneficial. Everybody was in the same spot. And when we had discussions, you didn't have people talking about hubs based on their knowledge of it. Nobody was mentioning like, well, I know the Greenwood hub, blah, blah, blah. Everybody was new to this. I was the hub expert. And I think there may have been a sense of like getting in on the ground floor, getting in at the beginning of something. So there was a little bit of that energy, at least that I sensed. And so looking back, then we, the power down, Oh, well, let me back up. So we had a series of meetings, kind of once a month, I think. One of them was I was describing the different roles, the greeter, the resource manager, just a handful, but how they work, how it goes together. And um, and our meetings went well and they were well attended. And I was thrilled. And so this is why I think we had success. The fact that the hub already existed, it wasn't just, oh, we need to figure out what we're going to do in an emergency. There's this whole support of the hub network. The whole thing, I think, came across to them as this is official. That it's not just we need to get together and figure this out. And then I think the fact that we had so many assets there at our hub, people recognize that we need to make sure it just doesn't go idle. And I think we had good momentum. For the meetings, I would send out an agenda and then I'd follow it with a summary. And I got positive feedback about the summaries. And so our meetings were kind of structured. Sometimes they go long, but they didn't, they were organized, in my opinion. And it sort of had a club atmosphere. Like I said, everybody was in the same place. And when we would get new people joining, we found at the power down drill, we picked up somebody that lives just down the road on Greenwood, and then another person that responded to our mailing list who was out of the town at that point. They contacted me and they came on board. And when I would send an email about the upcoming meeting, or I would introduce these new people. I would say, so-and-so is going to join us for the next meeting. Welcome Cliff. And I sort of, it seemed like a club, and everybody's in it kind of to the same degree, you might say. So I really feel good about it. We had a drill, which I thought was, Anne asked me if Phinney wanted to have a drill last fall. I said, are you kidding? But and it went well. And then we just had a skills fair just now, and that was successful. So now I'm trying to figure out what to do to keep our momentum up. So that's how we got to where we are.
Okay. There's a question in the chat about, were your meetings in person or on Zoom?
They were all in person. We've never done a Zoom, and I was actually thinking in terms of what are we going to do next, that we might do that. We would meet in person up at the hub outside. However, we did have access to, we had the P&A where we could get a room if we needed it. Yeah, P&A has been a great resource. We are really fortunate to have them.
Jim, I want to highlight that strategy you used. I've never heard it before, but it's brilliant. That idea of when you know somebody new is joining, you introduce them in email ahead of time, please welcome, blah, blah, blah. And you are cultivating a club atmosphere. You are kind of putting that person on notice that they are expected to show up, which I don't, a little peer pressure, not a bad thing. That's genius. I'm so stealing that one. I think you've been really good about whenever you have a meeting, whenever you're at an event, you always have the next one planned out. I think you've been pretty good about that. Like you said, to keep that momentum going.
I learned that from you.
Yeah, I know.
Go
Go ahead, Cindy.
And that's kind of what I was going to ask. So, Jim, your group has done a couple of practice sessions. We can always practice more, but are they also open to visiting other hubs now that they've sort of got their head around the basics and how they think they would set up things to go learn other best practices or
Like, well, like Power Down, for example, where we went and basically observed the Ballard Commons hub, or participate in someone else's drill. I mean, that would, yeah, we would definitely do that. And
yeah, the North Capitol Hill did 2 exercises that they've invited other hubs to, and that was great. And I can't off the top of my head think of anybody who's done a simulation that's more than just set up equipment, but we know that the summertime is when we're all going to get out in the field, right? So drills is of course going to come up in discussion here pretty quick. So that's good input. Thank you.
oh yeah, that's a great idea. Like I want to keep the momentum up, although I don't want to, it's a trade-off between, oh, let's do this big thing, versus let's just stay connected. But yeah, going and attending, participating in someone else's drill would be perfect.
That sounds like a good event for your group where they are right now. Nice. I think you have a really good sense of what your group needs and where they are. I think that's really smart. I think they have a good leader in you for that reason.
Thank you.
How many people are you at right now in your kind of core group?
About 8.
Oh, great. So you're not necessarily out there recruiting 5 more people for that group, but you're going to do training for people who will come help you at the exercises and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I think we're at a good size. Growing the group actually isn't a priority for me. Because we have quite a strong group. It's incredible how balanced it is. When we have a meeting and we're discussing things, everybody participates. And there's nobody that kind of sits back and, just kind of takes it in, and there's nobody that dominates. So I was just overjoyed.
Yeah. The question I got to ask it, club feels it in today's terminologies, it feels like closed club where, and so you kind of more mean like brothers in arms, right? To carry the war thing that like don't lose the hub. You all have a common mission, and that is bonding you together. And the strength of that bond is what makes the team so effective. So that if you have one more new person who wants to join, you're certainly open to it, but you feel comfortable with where you're at and that you're not needing to go recruit more people. You can now work on your skills for a while.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I use the club atmosphere term as we've got something big here. Excitement. I think everybody recognizes what a good group we have.
Nice.
But we're not being exclusive. That my priority isn't to grow the group.
And Jim, would you call this group your leadership team?
I don't What do you mean by leadership team? Like when we deploy and there'll be,
What's more like a core group, right?
Yeah.
It's who-
So
Do you make
what I'm
decisions with
getting
them
at,
about direction?
yeah,
yeah, any decisions we make are by committee, you might say. But I guess to me, a leadership group means there's other people beside them. And that we're kind of the core team, meaning that we know how to set up the hub and will be instrumental in on-the-job training when people walk up and we put them to work, and a group of people that understand how the hub works. But we don't have like non-leadership participants, to use the term leadership.
okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Kurt.
Kurt.
Okay, I've been saving up things to say. The North Capitol Hill Hub is a very successful hub. We have probably 24 active participants. And the thing about having a hub that size is we also have 4 or 5 people who are participating in the core leadership of the hub. So I hear that you don't want to grow super fast, but if you want any relief in terms of being leaders, getting more people into the hub and participating is a great way to ease that burden for those of you who are running. Another thing, I can't say enough how valuable it is to participate in other hubs drills. I would recommend that to any hub member of any hub is going to other drills, because
Yeah,
it gives you a
yeah.
chance.
I was at your drill when you guys had your drill. That was very informative.
Yeah, we had a big drill last August, and one of the things we did pretty good at outreach. So we had like 50 or 75 people beyond the hub coming in, and that was actually a great recruiting tool for getting more people interested in coming to hub meetings. So that's the last thing I have to say. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good comments about growing the hub population, so to say. And yeah, right now we have kind of this core team, and I haven't really been thinking big picture, but those are good comments.
Jim, there's a question in the chat from Jody about, like, do you have like one person is really set on being your resource manager and that's the only thing they're training for? How does your team, how would they set up the hub?
No, we don't have anyone that has like gravitated toward a particular aspect of the hub. Everybody, well, they're all still learning. Our drill was very informative, and people really got hands-on, sense of how that all works. And then we had a debrief, and people had great ideas. But it's a very flat organization.
Okay.
More questions? And flat and kind of informal, it sounds like. You were able to come together and have the discussion of what did you learn at the last thing, and bandy it around and then make some decisions from that. I heard you did say you have an agenda and you go through the meeting and kind of like some stuff, but
More like a plan, just so our meeting.
yeah, good. Okay.
Efficient.
So you didn't feel like you had to spend 3 hours preparing the agenda beforehand or something?
No.
Great. Another question in chat.
Yeah.
Oh, guys.
The P&A, they help. I haven't had a discussion with them about we could work together.
Oh, I'm surprised.
But they help us mostly. They have a shed that we get to use half of. The other half is the farmer's market materials.
So Darren, I think you did kind of miss the very beginning of it. Jim said he inherited a mailing list when he got the hub. And have you used or not used P&A's mailing list?
It's very similar. I compared the two when we were when I was inviting people, and Christy, the director there, asked if I wanted them to, provide more coverage, and I looked at their mailing list, and there's a lot of overlap. And that makes sense because I think a woman in P&A was very active in when the hub got started. Ruthie
Yeah.
McDonald. Yeah.
And she retired.
Yeah.
Jody, you had a question?
Yes. One of the things that I've found is if you just ask people to volunteer, they hesitate to do so because they're not sure what they're getting themselves in for. So the approach that we've been using is to ask people if they just like to be on the mailing list. And then we can work on finding out what their particular interests are. But I have been working with some people and pretty early on asking them if there is one of the roles that they would like to learn about and be in charge of. And after they see the amount of material there is available, that seems to be okay with them. I mean, they know then what body of knowledge and equipment they will be working with. So I think there's a kind of a progression from everybody working on everything to encouraging people to pick out one thing that they can rather specialize in as they go along. So I think that's another stage of working on things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jim, I got a question. So it sounds like right now your group is working on learning how the hub runs. Like that's what all your meetings are about, is let's understand how this hub works.
Well, since the
Go ahead.
drill, it's been, well, after the drill, then our focus was on the skills fair. But the drill really, that was a good education for them all. And it's more, discussions since then are more like, well, what if we had such and such and such and such? And for the volunteer coordinator, they're kind of thinking through.
They're doing scenarios.
Yeah, in there, right.
Okay. So you are really trying to war game out, the hub and how it would work. Is a logical next step like, okay, somebody's going to maybe take over radio comms at your hub, like what repeaters can we reach from this site, and who in our neighborhood has Jammer-us radios, and do they know how they work, and are we all using the same, do we all know what ACS, or not ACS, what ham frequencies to go listen to, and so radio becomes a kind of a specialty, and another group goes, another subset of your team is, okay, we want more of us, we want more people trained how this hub works. Let me work on that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in your head? Do you think that will happen? Are you just going to see how the group wants to do it?
Well, one person in the group mentioned the idea of talking to organizations in the community, which is, she was reading our minds.
Yeah.
But
They're thinking, yeah.
I envisioned encouraging her to kind of take the lead on that. And fortunately, we are further blessed that we have Ethan Schoonover, who ACS guy and our radio guy. I tell you, things just keep dropping in my lap.
You must be living right.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
Cindy.
Cindy.
I finally found the raise button thing. So I'm thinking next year, right? You have plenty of little opportunities. Does this group seem like they might want to get so grown into the hub role and comfortable? When I heard you say they're questioning about what scenarios might come up, do you think that they would ever get to where they want to, how we do the deep dives with different departments and we learn all the plans of the city and how transportation is going to do, or blah blah is going to do. Do you think that would ever be a draw to keep people motivated, that they get these education sessions? We gear those to hub captains right now. Do you think, don't know, do you think there's any desire on the average hub member to learn more around that? Or is that more a specialty thing?
I think they would be interesting in seeing, sitting in and observing those things, just to not necessarily, oh, I want to get involved in this or that, but just taking it in.
Purely education. Yeah, purely education.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Frank.
Yeah, I just had an observation. Excuse me, looking at the screen, there are 6 of us up there who communicate Monday nights on channels 1, 2, 4, and 6. We do check-ins. When people try to figure out what a hub is, maybe going up the preparedness pyramid, where at the green level, how do you communicate back and forth with your neighborhood? I'm thinking Madison Valley's got one hub, maybe they have 1 or 2 more eventually, or all of us grow. But then what happens when it gets there, and how does it work with the hams? Not to beat it to death, but say the whole purpose of a hub existing is to communicate information and store it. So you work at one level, the red and the blue, the SNAP. How do the SNAP people work in that? So how does it fit in the overall structure of it? And why is it necessary to have something going on? And also we get almost every person that's on here with a website or a GMRS radio has checked in at one another time with Matt or me over the last couple months, actually the last year. So there are people in your group right now who are using those radios. Could that be leveraged in any way to get people more interested?
I think Ethan, our ACS guy, it would be great for him to sort of teach the others or help get them up to speed. Other than Ethan, nobody. Oh no, I take that back. Carrie is into. He did the radio table at our skills fair. But other than those 2, the others don't know anything about like GRMS, but we could, those 2 could like kind of educate the others, raise that part of the awareness of that piece of the hub. Yeah, Hugh.
You guys are still back at basics of how do we work
Oh yeah,
together as a group before the add on all the other information flow stuff, right?
right.
So Frank's kind of doing a 201 for you here.
No, I did offer that not to dilute what he's suggesting, but when I hear the phrase, somebody doesn't understand what a hub is, okay? A hub exists at a certain level, then it interacts with other levels. So some people, once they understand the why it's there, at some point, you're going to have to get out of there, very possibly with radio. You don't have to drill down into that for 50% of your first couple meetings, but just so they understand, oh, okay, this is how it could work, and next year or whatever, we'll work into that. But that's how this flows. That's the only reason I suggested it.
Yeah, in the context of our group, people understand that there is radio communication, messages going out, messages coming in. But what's on the other side of that interface, for example, we've not had discussions on. But for example, in our drill that we did, in the scenarios, I had like a scenario for myself where I would bring a pre-filled out, what is it, ICS 213? The scenario piece was a trigger for me to go give that to the information manager. So they're from the idea and understanding that that is a source of information. But like I said, what's on the other side of that interface, nobody really understands
Not
right
ready
now, or
yet.
that hasn't been a
Not yet.
focus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hugh had his hand up too.
Yeah, back to what Frank was mentioning, and what I see as a really useful thing for the GMRS thing is a shortcut between adjacent hubs or nearby hubs for, getting immediate help. Like, I'm sorry, I forget, Jim, the name of your partner there at Phinney, but he was a little more into the radio, I recall.
Yeah, that was Jack Herndon, but
Yeah,
he had
Jack.
he had to step down. But we used to be co-captains.
Right. And there was another fellow active for a while, a few years back. And we used to do these just impromptu things before the Monday night drills that Frank and Matt are doing now. And it was really interesting to me to know, who could you talk to? I know that Matt's in a valley somewhere, and it's really hard for him to hit a repeater sometime, but I can hear him. So I can do relay, I can hear, I can hear the guy in Fremont that can't be heard on Phinney because there's stuff in the way there. And I stand at Phinney or Kirkett Park and relay, here's the message, So, but other things are, hey, we're busy here. We're not. You want us to send some volunteers over? We got 4 or 5 people here. And we're only a few blocks, that type of thing. So that's the value to me of this whole GMRS thing, is little hub to hub locally. It's fun to do the Monday night thing, but I'm probably not going to try and cross a broken bridge to get to Magnolia to Frank, but I can get over to Phinney Ridge real easy.
Hope you feel abandoned now, Frank. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been talking about how to work some more different types of activities into those Monday drills. So using backup repeaters and doing some more simplex testing. So not using the repeaters, just to see you can hear. I think there was a pretty successful event that North Capitol Hill did a few weeks back.
Nice. Jim, something I want to put out there, and it's for everybody. It's not just for Jim, but somebody on Jim's team is thinking about doing this idea of reaching out to businesses. I would love to have a conversation with that person before they hit the pavement about kind of a little bit of approaches. And if you're going to go to the effort of visiting these places, in my head, I've got a way of documenting what you find out so that it's not just sitting in your head. It's available to the hub. So real briefly, my conversation was with the nursing home in my community. And I went over there in my head to go, you guys have a big lobby. I wonder if I could use this for something. As soon as I walked in the door, I went, oh my God. And I sat down. I was sitting with the nurse, and I'm a nurse, retired nurse. But so we quickly got into the conversation of, yeah, you should not be looking to us to do anything. We have significant problems after a disaster because of how our business runs. So I walked away with, okay, you're not an asset, you're a liability, and I need to keep an eye out for you. And I documented that so that ideally the volunteer coordinator at some point can go, okay, you two volunteers, I want you to run to this nursing home. Here's my little 3x5 card of what to look out for. They have gas. They have patients that die all the time, regardless of an earthquake. They have issues with trash. These are their issues already. So they are armed, walking up to the nursing home going, hey, we have a feel for your issues. What's going on? And then they also have a piece of paper with them to write down what they need. So don't let her go out there without talking to somebody first about maybe this. Let's make good use of her time.
Yeah. You told me about that at the skills fair. I really like the idea of documenting the prior conversation. So we talked to the church up the street, and do they have any plans themselves? But having that type of thing written down and available to the volunteer coordinator, I like that idea. Cindy,
to go back to your feeling good about the hub in your neighborhood. So got your good core team, working, doing stuff. You said that you have a good outreach list that sort of mirrors the Phinney Neighborhood Association. So you sound like you got all your legs in place. And I know you said we haven't really thought about what we're going to do next for specific activities to keep people engaged. But what are you most worried about now?
Losing momentum.
Okay. Okay,
Although
no, you don't have to have an answer. I just wondered what you were most concerned about, what we can do to continue, if that's what's niggling at your head, to think about feeding you ideas that would keep that momentum going.
yeah, it's more, I want to keep people engaged, and thinking of how to do that without taking on some big project. I like the idea of, Jan, who was talking to other members of the community, having her spearhead that, and her talking with Anne and some, what did I write down? And then about growing the group, Kurt's input. So we could have some people working on that. I like the idea of people kind of having their task, or pairs of people or whatever. That's another way for people to stay engaged.
You have to be so careful with that. If you focus really hard on people having specific roles, when the day comes and the person whose role it was is squished under a pile of rubble, you end up having to ad lib. I think it's important.
I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about like a pair of people on the team, and they're going to head up recruitment or outreach.
Yeah.
But the idea is everybody understands all the roles, all the stations.
Catherine? You got to come off mute. We're not hearing you.
Bye. So, yeah, so I'm in about the kind of position where it's almost like 3 random people and 2 of them maybe even pay attention to what they want. So I think, where we kind of went off and did recovers and attracted a whole nother group of people who want nothing to do with hubs. Took a lot of our juice out. That's just a lesson. But I think I'm at the point where I'm not willing to do anything but make sure the box is locked up and the materials are up to date unless somebody else steps forward. And I think it really takes a consensus and an energy, and it's based on the talents and energies of the people and bringing them together, because we pulled off some big events. But people got to be willing, and I think there's probably some things we can figure out at the retreat that's like what's really fundamental. And I think there's a minimum bar, and maybe having a periodic email letter with news or helpful preparedness tips just to keep things connected. We're going to go knock on doors around the area. But, something that takes attention. I mean, somebody could do nothing else for the hub but a monthly newsletter, and it would be of great benefit. There's this sort of infrastructure stuff. One person can't do it all. You've got to focus where you can focus. And Cindy and Ann have always been incredible at bringing in the means for us to do a public event. Really incredible. But, there's probably some things that it's like the diversity of talents is, and people being able to gravitate towards what they are good at and feel comfortable.
Have a passion for it.
If it's, and then you start to become, this is an institutional piece of our hub. People get a newsletter, not, overwhelming emails or have to sit in long meetings, but they get a newsletter. We stay in touch. Just stuff like that. They're sort of hard to prioritize. I think sometimes it's going to be dependent on your situation.
All topics for the retreat. Absolutely. We heard that loud and clear. And that's why it was so exciting that we'd already set up this thing with Jim before we even got the survey stuff back, because we went, oh, whoa.
So helpful.
People in Jim's place. This is great. It doesn't call everyone to action, but this is the start of people who are needing these reboots coming out of COVID, that there is hope, right?
Jim, let me know if you feel the same way, but I get a lot of feedback from folks that nobody cares about this. Nobody in my community cares about this. So, I'm the only one beating the drum. My message is falling on deaf ears. I don't think that. I think our job as hub captains gets easier every single year. I think climate change is helping, sadly. I think news of disasters elsewhere, I don't think it's as foreign a concept now as it was 7 years ago. Is that, I think it's true your message didn't fall on deaf ears.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is getting easier to convince people that we have these threats that we need to prepare for versus 10 years ago, for example. Our group hasn't encountered any nobody cares in the skills fair. Those are self-selecting people interested in preparedness. And in terms of our group, that's kind of their exposure to the public so far. So we haven't been talking to the public, trying to recruit people or something like that, where we've gotten responses that, oh, I don't care about that. I'm fine.
I'm not going to type it. It helps that we had another earthquake locally here this morning. 3.6, like carnation.
Carnation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah. It was a 3.6. I almost emailed my sister-in-law to see if she felt it, but she was at work, so she didn't. Any other comments, thoughts, questions? Is this helpful? Is it inspiring? Are you?
So thumbs up.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's helpful. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Gabrielle. I thought it was really helpful. I like the way Jim broke down the different steps. I was drawing a little map as he was talking of some of it, because I kind of overlap these different areas, and I was like, I haven't done enough outreach to some of the areas that are right near me, because I'm one of the one that says nobody in my area cares. So answer that for me. I raised my hand, guilty. So I thought it was really helpful. Jim, I appreciated that, and the detail that you gave, that was good. I took some good notes. Thanks.
Yeah, I made a number of notes here about like growing the group, having kind of a leadership core and others, Kurt's comment, plus keeping people engaged by having them take on recruitment or talking to the community. It's not that it has to be a group activity, but individuals. And we could, we could do things over Zoom sort of related to that. Like when you have a meeting, you try to get people to come physically to a meeting, that's more of an effort. But yeah, I got a lot of good.
Just a reminder that the hub's got a Zoom account, and the way it was originally structured is if you wanted to check out the account one night to run a meeting, then you didn't have 40-minute limits. And so, now we've got two, Cindy's now got a personal account and Anne's got control of the.
Got a personal account. Yeah. Happy to loan them out.
Yeah, right. So I think.
Yeah, the network's paying for it.
I have the NEDC account, and that would fit as a community thing also if we didn't already have a meeting.
So don't let a 40-minute Zoom meeting be an issue.
Jody?
Yes, I think one of the things that is true in Ballard and some other areas is that there are a lot of new people here who have no idea they're an earthquake country, for starters. And also, there are a lot of people who are not convinced that there's anything they could or should do to help. So I think it seems to me that the more we can get out, information we can get out about the hubs and about skills fairs and other things, that enables people to know about the risks that they need to be prepared for, and to actually feel they could do something for themselves or for the community that would help. But I think there's a lot of lack of knowledge and a lot of unwillingness to recognize things that you'd rather not talk about, at least not this month. Over.
Thanks, Jody. Matt?
I was just going to comment on a few notes that I had for myself too, in terms of growing, because I have a small contingent through the Ravenna Bryant Community Association, but their primary focus is on many other things. But just some of the things that I kind of taken away from this, I think that will help me identify volunteers is to look at what are my strengths and my shortcomings and figure out what gaps I want to fill, like what particular personality traits or skills I'm looking for in volunteers, and then to emphasize like Jim said about, what exactly are the hubs, because it's something that I kind of have an intuition, but it's difficult for me to easily describe that to people. So just thinking about what that is, and what the actual specific requirements are for volunteer, because when somebody says, what would I have to do, and I kind of think, I don't know, come to meetings occasionally, unlock the box if there's an earthquake, but it's a lot more than that. So just thinking about what those actual, monthly or whatever things would be.
Thanks, Matt. You're selling the retreat for us. Hugh, just a second. We'll get to Catherine and then you.
I have to keep reminding myself, and maybe it's because I was an old precinct coordinator who spent a lot of time knocking on doors. We're talking 10 blocks around. And yes, removing Zoom, not having Zoom as an impediment, because we've all learned how useful it can be. We're talking 10 blocks around. So I'll stop there, but I have to keep reminding myself. My area, my neighbors, we should meet our neighbors. There's lots of new neighbors moving in. You may not get the reaction of people who show up or are already interested, but you've done good work by, around here with all the new people, you're providing a basic fact. And you're meeting your neighbors.
Go ahead, Hugh, and then Cindy.
Yeah, as to suggestions, I remember a while back, someone had the idea of trying to get community members together, just as a way of, quote, advertising, was some kind of an emergency cookout. In other words, it's coming up summer here, folks. There'll be nice weather. It might be a good idea to try and do that. And the 10 blocks around thing is just the perfect radius too. We could advertise it as the power's out, the earthquake's out, the bridge is out. This is a cook the obscure things you have in the back corner of your freezer night, folks. Come to the park. We've got so many barbecue grills, etc. Something like that would get people there, and then you hit them with the pitch. Hey, you heard about emergency hubs? So, well, let's tell you about it.
Yeah, that's fun. I love the creative stuff.
Well, we did zucchini races. We did
Yeah, you did zucchini races. That's right.
Kids, right?
Still didn't get quite the relationship between the hub, but it got people there and interested.
Yeah, but it was like, it was the, end of zucchini season. Everybody wanted to get rid of their zucchinis.
Yeah.
There you go. That's the key.
Yeah. So I also want to go back to something Matt said, just the thinking of, in my hub, who do I need, and I need to start, and so I have had this experience, and it's kind of like this woo-woo, you put it out there, but if you're conscious of what you need, then things start to happen. And I've been in a coffee shop where I was meeting a friend for coffee, and I was catching her up on what hub stuff was. So I was not recruiting or teaching or anything, but we were talking about, preparedness, and two people who were overhearing us actually, when she left, and they were like, we heard what you were talking about. And one of them has ended up being somebody who stayed with being involved in my hub. So it is big scale, 10 blocks. And it's sometimes as weird as, I need somebody to do blah, blah, blah. And this person showed up and happened to like doing blah, blah, blah. It was the weirdest thing. So don't discount knowing what you want and being able to seize an opportunity should it actually plunk it right in front of you.
All right. Any last minute comments? We're at our 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock bewitching hour.
It's fantastic presentation.
Yeah,
Yes,
Jim,
thank you,
thank
Jim.
you.
Thank
I
you.
really
Taking
appreciate
the
you putting
lead.
that together. Putting
Yeah.
thought
Thank
in
you
it.
very much.